States an exceptional country, the indispensable nation? Proponents of this idea claim the U.S. is a force for good in the world and has the right, even obligation, to act unilaterally when necessary. Critics charge American exceptionalism is dangerous to the U.S. and the world, as well as a cover for global domination and empire. Rodney, if I can go to you first in London, do you like the term American exceptionalism? And is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's an accurate term. The USA is egregiously exceptional. It spends 40% of the world arms budget, and with the undeclared spending, it's nearly 50%. If you take a year, say 1950, it's been involved in war for every single year. And in the undeclared wars, it does the assassinations and the torturing in favour of fascist regimes in South America. It's got a programme of future wars against any independent Islamic state. It says all options are on the table, which means it will use atomic weapons against countries which have no atomic weapons. It supports the endless expansion of the Zionist entity into the lands of others. It spews poison like Israel spews phosphorus. The USA spews depleted uranium. It's the lull in the napalm and the Agent Orange.
The United States has a responsibility and has a role to play internationally.
Well, a lot of people would say, if I go to Rodney, is that the United States makes the world unstable in its unilateral actions around the world, just the opposite.
Well, we're only about 2 weeks ago from the American attempt to set off a Third World War. Fortunately, there was a bit of backbone coming from Russia. Could I go into the domestic situation in the USA?
Go ahead.
The true unemployment there is 23%. That's John Williams' shadow stats. And it's double that for young people. There's 50 million people on food stamps. The real incomes of the middle classes have gone backwards for 25 years. And we are told that America is the exemplar of the free market. It isn't. It's now it's a fascist society. The government has bought 2 billion dum-dum bullets, which are exploding bullets, to fire at its own people. And I'm being told by David that America is an exemplar to the world. It is now moving straight into fascism. It is spying on everybody else, spying on its own people. It's got 2,700 light tanks, all those dum-dum bullets, because its economy is collapsing, its political authority is collapsing, and as for its moral authority, it no longer has anything. Right the way throughout the world now, it is either laughed at or despised.
Mark, does America have a virtuous foreign policy? Is that what makes it exceptional?
I think America pursues its interest and advances its principles. It doesn't try to make the world over in its image, but it does need to be true to principles that many believe are not American but are universal. I'd like to just go back to a couple points. One domestic, one international. The unemployment rate in the United States is about 7%. It's not 23%. It's still too high, and there's a lot of criticism on both sides of the aisle about.
David, that's nonsense.
Well, it's a fact. What's nonsense is you calling the United States of America a fascist. That's insulting. Internationally, I think that it is important for the United States to be stronger at home, to be more strong economically, and to set itself as a better example and lead by example and less preachy. But on Syria specifically, I think what we've had is a president in the United States that's been more reactive. Not being George Bush gets you a Nobel Peace Prize, but after that you have to come out with a strategic vision. None exists in this administration, and engagement in Syria at a much earlier point could have saved a lot of lives and prevented more radical elements from coming into Syria. And the president did say he was going to war, and then recognized that he would have less support domestically and internationally than George Bush did, and balked and went to Congress, and the Congress balked, and Putin gave him a lifeline, which he readily accepted.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to jump in here. We're going to go to a short break, and after that short break, we'll continue our discussion on American exceptionalism.
I love his voice. I love him.
Welcome back to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. To remind you, we're discussing whether America is an exceptional country. Okay, I'd like to go back to you, Rodney, in London. A lot of critics of the United States around the world will say what makes America exceptional is that its ability to go to war unilaterally and suffer no consequences whatsoever. This is the kind of exceptionalism a lot of people don't like.
That is a very precise statement of the situation. In the case of Syria, it was the willingness of others to stand up. But America is essentially an arrogant, bullying power. It no longer has the political authority that David thinks it holds. It no longer has the moral authority, and economic power is shifting away from America to the West, and at some stage quite soon people will realize that they have been financing American militarism and that the dollar's going to crash. There's a great big pile-up coming for the USA, and it's primarily because it's a very, I'm not saying this of American people, but the elite and those who control the politics are beyond belief arrogant.
David, arrogance, I mean, that gets it to the point in a lot of ways. I mean, go back to Iraq. I mean, always going back to Iraq here, and this is what's really rattled the image of the United States for many, many people in the world. I mean, there are plenty of people in the world that have always hated America. I accept that, okay? But Iraq, people focus in on. Can the United States recover from that? Because it seems like there's no change of behavior until we got to Syria.
Sure, I think look, I think that looking at the Iraq War in hindsight, there's a lot to be said in a positive nature and a negative nature. But looking at the Middle East today, you can definitely say that the Middle East is far less stable. That the Arab Spring has turned into a Islamic winter, and there's a lot of issues there that affect a great number of people. I don't think that the United States, if we were sitting on the sideline, would be looked at by its critics any less arrogant, to use Mr. Shakespeare's word, than if we were fully engaged. My point is that the United States has a history of engaging, not mistake-free, but engaging in the world as a very positive force, expanding freedom and democracy, following brave people in the different countries.
Okay.
In Saudi Arabia, well, Saudi Arabia is a perfect example. Saudi Arabia is a perfect example. Any country advances their interests, that's fine. The United States advances its interests, has relations with Saudi Arabia, that's a problem. So your dichotomy is either they're an ideal country or we don't have relations with them. Well, that puts us very much out of the international community. That is a very negative aspect on stabilizing. And if you look at Saudi Arabia again, the United States has a very workable relationship with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia plays an important role in the global energy picture.
But to be fair here, no, gentlemen, let me stay with David here.
The need for greater freedom and democracy.
Yeah, but I mean, democracy was in Egypt. Now it's run by a military dictatorship again.
Yes. And the USA has supported all the dictatorships from Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and the Persian Gulf states. I mean, I don't want to hear anything from David. The USA could simply turn those countries into democracies by pulling out its support for those narrow, corrupt, tyrannical autocracies. I mean, really, that is the issue. The USA could be trading with democracies right the way through the Persian Gulf. And all we get from David at best is the USA is following its interests. Those interests do not include democracy for people. And I don't want to hear him use the word democracy again.
No.
Thank you very much.
Okay, but we're going to get...
David mentioned Iran. The UK and the USA overthrew democracy in Iran in 1953, and over the years 1980 to 88, we gave the chemicals for Saddam Hussein to use poison gas on the Iranians. That is the sort of thing you get from American exceptionalism.
Okay, an exceptional conversation, gentlemen.